Alrighty, so another movie to talk about, which is a recently released on Shudder, I believe, movie called Oddity. And so I don't have Shudder, so I rented on Amazon Prime for like $6. Um, I had seen a clip of it on TikTok, so I was curious, and the description basically is the premise. Basically, a woman is murdered, and her sister wants to take revenge on the people she thinks are responsible or involved somehow. Now, the only problem with that is the movie is extremely predictable. It's very fast. Also, I think it's right at a minute. I'm sorry, an hour and a half, and it's unfortunate because it has very cool scenes. The cinematography is very great, but it's so predictable that right from the beginning, I was like, I already know. So, in the beginning, I think maybe it's like Scotland or something. It's this woman going to a freshly bought house castle thing. She's sleeping there in a tent, and her husband is a doctor who works nights all the time, and he's like, I won't be there till tomorrow. So she's like, okay. But she is, like, I want to invite my sister over. So she leaves her sister a voicemail. But then as she hears something, she goes out to her car, leaves the front door open, comes back. And mind you, this is a weird house where it's like a castle. Imagine a square, and you live in the square part, but the center is just like a courtyard where you park your car and shit. It's a really weird looking house. Um, but she goes back, locks the door, and it's at night, and you hear someone at the door. So it's not a people, it's like a little slide, and it's this crazy looking dude with one fake eye, and he's like, hey, I was wandering around, and while you were in your car, I saw a man run inside your house because you had the door open. And she's like, what? No. And he's like, I'm serious. And he's clearly seems like a crazy guy. He's like, there's somebody in this house. You need to get out. And so it's like showing you she's about to open the door, and it cuts. And so I was like, I can tell you right now, that guy did not murder her. Somebody else did. But it cuts to basically, about almost a 1 year ahead. And the twin sister of the lady who died owns like an oddity shop. And the ex-husband of the lady who died walks in and is like, I haven't seen you in a while. You doing okay? Blah, blah, blah. And the lady's like, just so you know, everything in here, she's also blind, but she's like, everything in here is cursed, and I lift the curse when people buy it. But you'd be shocked how many people try to steal something from here and come back because they're cursed. Um, and he's like about to touch something. She's like, don't touch it. This bell belonged to basically like a bellboy that died, and everyone who's rang it has died because the bellboy will come back and kill them. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. But you know the guy still lives in that house where she was murdered, and now he has a girlfriend, and the sister's like, your ex-wife hadn't even, like, your wife hadn't been dead for even a year, and you've already got a girlfriend. She's moved in, like, what? And so she's like, well, and then the doctor's like, I know you, since you believe in this shit, I got you the fake eye of the guy who killed your sister, my wife. And she's like, thanks. And so it shows her reading it, scanning it, and basically has like glimpses of images of like a man in a white mask. And she's like, and then basically it cuts to the doctor and his new girlfriend. And she's like, yeah, like a trunk came from your dead wife's sister or something. It's weird. And then the sister shows up and is like, yeah, remember you promised me that towards the anniversary of her death, I could come over. And you're like, okay. But then the guy's like, I'm heading to work, bro. And she's about to, my girlfriend doesn't like staying here alone, so she's going to leave too. She's like, that's fine. I just want to stay in the house. And they're kind of weirded out, but it's like, okay. But then the guy leaves, and then the girlfriend is like, that's weird. I can't find my keys. And they had looked in the chest and they're like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but whatever. And then, the girlfriend's like, just so you know, that's a weird fucking gift and I don't like it. You need to return it. And she's like, okay. And it's basically like a wooden man golem thing. And 99% of the movie is the golem just sitting at a table, and it'll cut to a different scene where, its arms moved or something, and you sit there and go, we better see a payoff for this, otherwise that's really fucking stupid. But the girlfriend can't find her keys, and the sister is being really weird, and the sister's like, it wasn't the crazy guy that killed my sister, it was actually the man that works for your boyfriend. It was my sister's husband, it was his coworker who killed her. And so then she can like see the vision of how her sister was really killed, which is that a man in a mask was actually in there with a hammer and killed her. And so the moment she said that, I was like, let me guess. The husband is the killer, and he's in league with his coworker and killed her for some reason, which we'll find out in the end. Lo and behold, that is the truth. But a majority of the movie is spent with the girlfriend actually being tormented by both the ghost of the dead wife, but also the sister and the golem. Like the lights being turned off, and she finds the old camera that the wife originally had. And she's watching a video of the wife, like when she was talking to the husband. But she hears a noise and then replays the video. But this time, instead of the husband being in the video, it's the ghost of the dead wife. And she says, run. And so then the girl drops the camera and you just keep hearing it say, run, run. And she's like, what the fuck? So she's like, being tormented, finally just runs out of the house. And I mean, beforehand, she had asked her, her boyfriend, like, come here, I'm scared. So he's like, okay, I'm going to try to leave work to get her. So the girlfriend freaks out, runs, and you see the ghost of the dead wife kind of come up. And you're like, ooh, come out from the doorway. And it's almost like the sister who died was basically warning the girlfriend of one of two things. Either like, run before the husband comes back, the boyfriend comes back, or run because my sister's so crazy she's going to try to kill you too. Because you basically find out that the guy was fucking his girlfriend that he has now while he was still married to his wife. And so she's freaking out and just leaves, and basically leaves him for good. So you're like, okay, I wouldn't say she was innocent, but, like, she got to live. But then the husband comes back, the boyfriend, and, the sister is like, you killed her. Like, I don't know why, but like you killed her, and I know you hired him to kill her, and you're trying to cover it up. And she was like, why just send the guy over here to kill me too while you're at it. And he's like, call the police, like they'll verify what the facts are, that the crazy guy killed her, because the sister basically feels bad because they thought the crazy guy killed her. So what she did is she cursed him, I think for the golem to show up and crush his head. And then in realizing that he was actually trying to save her and innocent, the sister feels guilty and it's like, I'm going to burn in hell for what I did, but I'm going to try to make amends beforehand. She's like, I'm going to expose you. And so the guy's like, I'm going to lay my phone here right in front of you, and I'm going to call the police. When I call, answer, and you'll know, like we'll go through the truth. But what he's actually doing is, there was a little, like, I don't know, on the second floor, like, an escape hatch, but there's no ladder or anything. It was really weird where I'm like, what's the point of building that? Like, that makes no fucking sense. But there's just, like, an escape hatch with just a hole to the first floor, which if you jump down, you'd probably break your knees. But what he had done is remove the hatch so that when she goes to reach for the phone, since she's blind, she'd fall through and basically probably die. And so she's hesitant at first when the phone rings, but decides to answer it, falls through the hole, and is basically dying because she cracked her head. The orderly, the coworker of the doctor, basically goes there and is going to kill her, but then realizes she's already going to die anyways. And so he's like, calling the doctor. He's speaking in lingo, like, hey, 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 she's about to die, so we're all good. But then you realize, yeah, so she is in control of the golem. So she's doing the spell to control the golem. And so finally, the wooden man golem is walking around. It's real creepy, and he's chasing the guy, and the guy is like tripping balls. And unfortunately, as the golem grabs the guy's head and is about to crush the skull, the lady dies, so the golem stops. And then the guy wakes up in in the mental hospital, tied down, like, what the fuck? And the doctor's like, listen, like, no one's gonna believe you. You're trying to admit that you're guilty of killing my wife, which is they're gonna come after me. So I can't let that happen. So he basically lets in a mental patient that, like, bites people to death, and the assumption is, he's killed him. And you're like, this piece of shit. And you think he's getting away with it. The girlfriend left him, and so he goes back to the house, and he sees that there's a package from the Oddity sister who died. And he opens it, and it's the bell from the beginning that she told a little story about. And, he's like, because the whole movie, he's like, I don't believe that shit. I'm a man of science. And so he's like, it's zooming in. He's like, ding. And, it does these camera angles where it's like zooming in on his back. And he's like, comically, I feel like the scene lasts a little too long of him going, and then it cuts back to him again going. I'm like, we fucking get it. Oh my God, stop. And finally he's like, whoo. And he's like, and right next to him is the bellboy ghost, and it cuts. So with the sister having said that everyone who rings the bell dies eventually, you can take that. Because, you're like, man, fuck, this piece of shit gets to live. But no, it's like, oh, he's dead. He's going to get what's coming to him. I mean, how on earth can the police go, that's really weird. Your wife was murdered here, and then on her anniversary, her sister also gets murdered here. That's really weird. And when we look at the hospital records, you, like, quickly ran back in here and called her. No, apparently not. Apparently in whatever country he's in, they're like, yeah, that's a weird coincidence. But I wouldn't say it was a bad movie. It was good enough, but it's so predictable. I've seen so many movies like this where you gotta be a little better about fooling people. The moment you don't show the sister being killed by the crazy guy, automatically I'm gonna go, she was killed by someone else. The crazy guy's being framed. They portray the husband like such an asshole throughout the whole movie, where I'm like, absolutely, he's a part of this. And the moment the sister is like, I know who did it. It's the guy that works for your husband. Works for my dead sister's husband. I'm like, he's in on it. So unfortunately, that was really predictable. But everything else, I mean, I thought was pretty well done and shot well, and the acting for the most part was good, minus the husband just so being comically like, I'm a man of logic and science. My work. But I liked everything else. So would I recommend watching this? If you have Shudder, absolutely. Or I mean, next month is October. If you want to do like a horror list, I'd say put it on there. It's pretty good. It's a lot of teasing, I'll tell you that. It's a lot of like, ooh, and then a decent enough payoff at the end. But that's about it for this video. Again, thank you for watching and sticking around. I'm reviewing all kinds of things still, so until next time, that's going to be it. I'm out.